Let's go to Mary Holm to talk money matters. And today we're talking about emergency money, according to sorted.org. A lot of us need help on that issue. How much money is enough and where should you keep it? Mary Holm joins us now. Hello.
Hi, Jesse.
What got you thinking about this?
Well, Sorted, which is run by the Retirement Commission, they've got a Money Month every August. And this year the theme of Money Month is emergency money. So I thought, well, I better get in and do my bit and talk to you about it. So we're talking rainy day money or emergency money that you can call on when things don't go quite right. And their definition, I don't know that it's theirs. One definition, a sort of simple definition, is that you've got access to $5,000 within a week without borrowing.
Gosh.
Which a lot of people might say, I don't know that whether that includes credit card, because, you can put stuff on a credit card and then that gives you a month or so to then pay it back. But
I guess it's a bit of a tricky one. But if you can pay it back without paying interest, maybe that counts.
Yes, hopefully, yes.
I don't know. It depends whether the standover guy, the bookies, accept credit card, Mary.
Yeah, look, indeed, yes. Obviously, it depends. There's so many different sorts of emergencies people have where suddenly they need money. Quite often, perhaps a car breakdown and you need the car for work and other things, or there's all sorts of different situations that listeners will be able to think of where suddenly, out of the blue, you need quite a lot of money that you hadn't expected. So that's what we're talking about here. And Sorted did a bit of research on it and found that 44% of the population say they don't currently have an emergency fund, so close to half. And they also found that there were quite a lot of data, and I thought the most interesting one really was that a little more than a third of people who have an emergency fund are concerned about their finances from pay to pay, from payday to payday, whereas nearly two-thirds of those without a fund are concerned about their finances. And the point here is that affects your mental health. If you always kind of a little bit worried that if things go wrong, you're going to be in big trouble. And I always say, gosh, when things go wrong, you don't need to have financial worries as well, because there's often sort of emotional worries and all kinds of other stuff happening at the same time. So that's kind of why I think, do try and get at least some emergency money put away somewhere. And in a minute we can talk about where. But as far as priorities with your money, I've said to you many times that I think top priority's got to be repaying high interest debt, whether it's credit card debt or buy now, pay later, which you don't. There's not interest as such, but there's plenty of fees if you don't pay it off fast. I think that's got to be your top priority, but I think your second priority is to have some kind of rainy day fund lined up, even more than I think KiwiSaver. For all that I rave to you about how important KiwiSaver is, I think it's even a higher priority than putting extra into KiwiSaver, putting extra aside for rainy day money. Look, I don't know about putting the basic amount into KiwiSaver in order to get the employer contribution, or if you're not an employee, to get the government contribution. I wouldn't argue with that. I think that's got to be a very high priority. But beyond that, putting extra into KiwiSaver versus setting up an emergency fund, I would go with the emergency fund.
Yeah, both are forms of saving for the future, aren't they, Mary? They're putting something aside for a later date, which is, for many of us, quite a hard thing to do.
Yes, psychologically, yes, yeah. But with the emergency fund, it might not be much later. It might be tomorrow.
Do you agree with that $5,000 figure?
seems high to me, but look, there's all sorts of, when you read the literature on this, there's all sorts of different people who come up with different numbers. Some people say that you should have 3 months of expenses set aside, so 3 months of your sort of regular spending money. And I think that's a bit silly for most people. It's like telling people they need $1 million to retire, because I think if you set these goals too high, people just say, "Oh, I can't do that.
Yeah.
Let's go out for another dinner and we'll worry about it later." Because it's just too hard, So what I would say is, look, just if you don't feel you have an emergency fund set up right now, set yourself a goal of getting $500 put aside, in the next 6 months or something like that, and then obviously adding to it is good. But the other point about it is, last time we talked, Jesse, we were talking about insurance, and they go hand in hand, an emergency fund and insurance. If you don't have much insurance, you need more of an emergency fund.
Yes.
Clearly, yeah. But even if you've got insurance, there are things that happen that you can't insure against.
You can't get car breakdown insurance, can you, Mary?
No, you can't, to my knowledge. Or similarly, if the washing machine breaks down, or the fridge, or something like that, and it's not easily repaired, and so you're suddenly facing buying a whole new appliance, because most of us can't get by for very long without those sort of basic appliances. So, and you can't get insurance against that. So, to some extent, if you're well insured, you don't need as big an emergency fund. But I would argue that it's a pretty good idea to have both, really. Yeah.
Where are we going to put this money?
Yeah, good question. Not in KiwiSaver unless you're over 65. If you're over 65, the KiwiSaver might be good, but a lower risk KiwiSaver fund might be a good place to park your money, because you can get it out again, with just a couple of days' notice. But people under 65, of course, have to wait until they are 65. You can get money out in financial hardship under 65, but as a lot of people have been learning in the last couple of years, it's really hard. You've got to, you've got to prove to them that you're really in financial trouble by showing them all your bank statements and all sorts of stuff.
Yeah.
And even then, it's not easy to get. So I would say for most, if you're under 65, KiwiSaver is not the place to be putting emergency money. You want it to be somewhere that's quickly accessible and somewhere where the balance is not going to go up and down much, because you don't want it to be down right when you're pulling your money out. So a low-risk fund would be one possibility. But the obvious places really are, one would be a bank account where you get less interest if you withdraw from it. My bank's got that, and I think most banks do, where they'll pay you higher interest if you leave the money in for at least 3 months or at least a certain period. And if you do need to take it out, then you get lower interest. But the point with an emergency fund is that usually you won't need to take it out. And so, hopefully for 9 quarters out of 10, it's sitting there earning the higher interest.
Totally,
and then every now and then, you just have to accept the lower interest. And have a look at interest.co.nz. It's a really good source of information on who's offering what sort of bank accounts at what interest rates, etc. Another possibility would be a 30-day term deposit. If you've got a credit card, you can then put any expenses on a credit card, and because you get at least a month to pay for credit card expenses. So if you've got the emergency fund in a 30-day deposit, and you put the emergency spending on your credit card, by the time you have to pay that credit card bill, the term deposit will have matured. So that's another possible spot.
Yes, that's very clever. Yep.
Yeah, and because you tend to get a higher return there. So you want to try and get something a bit more than the kind of 1 or 2% before tax that we tend to get in an ordinary bank savings account. A non-Kiwi saver low-risk fund, cash fund, is certainly another possibility, and sometimes that you get a bit better return there than you do in these bank accounts, and sometimes not, but that's certainly a possibility. But the one that's most interesting really is if you've got a mortgage, in which case you can effectively get a higher return on your emergency money. And the way to do that is to pay extra off your mortgage and arrange with the lender that you can borrow that extra back again when you need it. So a lot of lenders will let you do that. Just pay $20 extra a month even, or $20 extra a fortnight, $100 a month, or something like that. Whatever you can afford to pay. I would say get it in writing from the lender that you can borrow that money back.
Yeah.
When you need it. But a lot of the lenders will let you do that. And the other way to do it is if you've got an offset mortgage or a redrawable or revolving credit mortgage, with all of those, you pay less interest because you reduce your mortgage balance by putting money into that bank account. We've talked about this before. I don't think I just explained it very well. But so you've got an account with your mortgage. You've got a bank account with a balance that might say minus 200,000 or more. Whatever your mortgage is, which is quite affronting when you first get it. But and then you put as much money as you can into that account in the meantime, as much sort of everyday money as, so you pay, regular pay perhaps comes in, and then you take out of that power bills and things like that.
Yeah.
when they're due. And
we've chatted about that before. Sorry to interrupt. Yeah, we've chatted about before. It's probably worth a whole session. But I guess if people have a revolving mortgage, they will know, and which I do, and they'll know what you mean, and won't feel bad about the fact that they sort of technically will be borrowing to dip into that cash fund, right?
In a way, that's right. So basically, anyone with any sort of mortgage, if they can get an agreement to pay extra off it and borrow that back when they need to. Got it. Can
we have a quick word on any ideas on how to build up this imaginary pile of cash, Mary?
Yeah, well, I mean, obviously, if you get an inheritance or lump sum redundancy pay, win the lotto or something, that can give you a good way to get started. But another idea is just imagine your income's been cut. So let's say you're making, $1,000 a week. Imagine that it's gone down to $900 a week, and then put that extra $100 into an emergency fund. You can sort of play mind games with yourself quite often doing that. One other little idea that I think I've told you about before that I remembered a finance professor telling me about many years ago. At the beginning of the year, he says to himself, I'm going to donate, let's say, $2,000 to charity this year, and then, but that's what he tells himself at the beginning of the year. And then if there's any emergency things that happen through the year, he takes it out of that $1,000. So if he has a bad year and spends $800 of that on emergency spending, well, then at the end of the year, the charity gets only $200. But if nothing bad happens, the charity gets the full $1,000, if you see what I mean. He sort of says, I've psychologically kissed goodbye to that money at the beginning of the year, and so when an emergency comes, it's kind of like the charity pays it instead of me.
Yeah, I think that's good.
Yeah, and most years the charity will get full amount, but if something bad happens, then it gets less.
Everyone will have their own trick, Mary. That's great stuff.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
We'll send people...
Jesse, can I just very quickly mention...
Oh, yes, you've got something coming up, don't you?
Yes, I do. In the Warkworth Town Hall on Friday the 29th of August, I'm doing a free talk open to the public based around my book, Rich Enough. It's run by the Auckland Library. And so it's sort of 8 steps to get your finances sorted, and it's free, and it goes from 6 o'clock till 7 o'clock in the Walkworth Town Hall, and you can get tickets. The easiest way is to go onto my website, maryholm.com, and on the homepage there's a link to go through and get tickets for that.
You enjoy those live events?
Yeah, I do. You do too, don't you, Jesse?
Well, yeah, it depends on the live event, but it's definitely it's a change up from the day job, and I know yours are really popular. So thanks for mentioning that. What date in Walkworth?
It's 29th, Friday the 29th of August, so it's a couple of weeks away.
Good stuff.
Yes.
Thanks. Nice to talk to you.
Thanks,
Thank you.
Jesse. You too. Yes.
Mary Holm on emergency funds.